So welcome everybody, this is the SharePoint Patterns and Practices General Development Special Interest Group call. And it is a mouthful, but basically what it means is that in this call we talk about all of the SharePoint development topics which are not about SharePoint framework and the client-side development, so the non-JavaScript based customization. So, but to be fair, the IM window, the chat window in the Skype is really there to help on those questions as well. So if you have questions, anything related on dev SharePoint development or craft related on SharePoint or Teams development on SharePoint framework, feel free to ask those questions in the IM window, and community members will absolutely help on things. Now, it is 7th of March. It is, well, we're heading closely one step at a time towards spring, but at least in Helsinki it is snowing, so it is spring is really far away from where I stand for. Now, a few things. I actually didn't get the Teams slide here. I forgot about putting that one in here. For those who will always have the question when we start moving into the call, why aren't we in Microsoft Teams? Why aren't we in Microsoft Teams? We are not in the Microsoft Teams because there are still missing key core capabilities from the Microsoft Teams, which is actually the fact that you're able to differentiate presenters and the attendees. In this calls we have up to 200 attendees, and the fact that every single person joining to the call can actually accidentally or intentionally start sharing whatever content they want is a massive PR nightmare for Microsoft to happen. So we cannot actually go to the Microsoft Teams until the Microsoft Teams is supporting the differentiation of the presenter and the attendee within this call. So just making sure that everybody is aware of that timeline. So we're looking into making that happen as fast as possible, but we need to be careful on not causing any PR nightmares for Microsoft as well. Now let's actually get on going on the actual content. Just make sure that my clicker is working. So we'll have a few slides, latest on PnP CSOM Core, latest on PnP PowerShell, and latest on modernization tooling. So quick updates on those 3 open source initiatives which are running under the PnP umbrella. And then we have 3 different demos. Today, Chaks will start because Chaks has a family errands he needs to start taking care of as fast as possible. So Chaks will start with the demo, then we go to Chris, and then we go to Velin in the end.
And it seems like, unfortunately, we might have lost. Oh, there he is.
Interesting. Why does it always happen? Awesome. So I'm back. Okay, so 3 items, 3 demos. Chaks with the customizing the modern page approval workflow. Chris Kent is now doing then the alternating row styles model, which is the one which he tried to do last time, but there was some issues related on that. And then the third one is from Velin around the DevOps pipelines. Now, quick reminders if you're looking into contributing, if you're interested on doing a live demo in this course, that is absolutely a possibility. Please let us know. Please ping me, Patrick, Bert, whoever from the core team, and we'll set you up on the timing around the call. You can absolutely contribute on GitHub. We have a lot of samples available. You can contribute on the documentation as well. And the key point, provide feedback using the different channels. So if something isn't working properly, let us know so we're able to fix that. That's the number one thing. Rather than just complaining, let us know and we'll try to fix that as soon as possible. Now, SharePoint Dev Docs, just a reminder, as AKMS SP Dev Docs are on documentation. SharePoint Dev Videos, AKMS SP Dev Videos. We had 2 million views within the last 365 days, so apparently there is valuable content in the video side as well. And then the issue list is there to help you as well. So if needed, if you have issues, please let us know and we'll support you on those questions. Now, let's actually move into the PnP CSOM Core library side. And Bert, I think you're ready to go through the latest changes on the following 3 sections, unless I'm completely mistaken.
Yes, I can do that, Professor.
Excellent.
If you can move the slide. So.
Yep, that works. So let's go to the slide. I'll be your lovely assistant. I'm more than happy to do that.
You're my remote clicker.
Yes, indeed.
Right. So for CSOM Core, which is our main utility library containing lots of extension methods, plus the provisioning engine and Pages API, that one will we'll get the March release out tomorrow. At least that's my plan. And in there, I think one of the key new things that we have is for SharePoint 2019, we have ALM support and client-side pages API. And that work was done by user Laffy. I think it's Lars. I don't know his last name anymore, so I'm not sure if Lars is in the call, but if so, please put a message in the chat that Lars did that work. So thanks for that. Thanks for doing that, Lars. Now you can, with this, you can finally start to kind of automate SharePoint 2019 deployment of apps, creating of modern pages in there, etc. Another thing that we have is a new authentication approach using Azure AD credential flow. Essentially, the case that we had is that more and more tenants have legacy auth disabled, which then means that you can't use basic SharePoint username and password anymore with the SharePoint Online Credentials object, because that's blocked. And to enable that scenario, we kind of did something similar, but then using Azure AD credential flow. You still specify your username and password, but now we use Azure AD to get an auth token, an access token, and this way it always works. When we did that work, we also found out that our cloning method, so when you create a context, you can clone a context to a different URL, that one broke when you cloned to a URL in a different namespace. So let's say you had a URL for birthline.sharepoint.com and you wanted to go to birthline-my.sharepoint.com. It didn't work. So now the cloning method is more intelligent and it can handle those scenarios. Furthermore, we had some provisioning bug fixes from user Shodiko and Gotham. So I think overall there's something, lots of good things actually in this one, but the main thing that I want to spell out here is SharePoint 2019 improvements.
Yeah. And
next?
I'm sorry, before we go to the following, I needed to add that completely meaningless fact because just for fun smiles. So apparently Tuesday is the #1 usage day for PnP.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that yet. But yeah, the mentioning that, meaning the usage of PnP CSOM Core keeps growing, and as you see there, we really have 18,000 plus tenants a month using PnP CSOM Core. So pretty big.
Yep.
Going forward, I think new schema is one of the big things, and then potentially web-part connections. Meaning I'm not yet 100% convinced that we already need this right now, but meaning if there's like a demand for having web-part connections in client-side API, meaning it can be looked at, but let's see. So if you need it, maybe provide feedback in the chat window. If you have like a scenario where you really depend on web-part connections, being able to programmatically set those up, then let us know.
Good.
Alrighty, let's move to the next one, Vanessa. PowerShell, Erwin's baby, but Erwin is not here, so I will represent his baby. That sounds really weird now, though. So again, the release is coming really soon. For PowerShell, it will be Monday due to logistic reasons. And in there, we have updated Connect PnP line, aligned to the PnP CSOM Core change that I talked about with the authentication when you have legacy all disabled. In PnP PowerShell, when you authenticate with username and password, and that fails due to the fact that legacy auth is disabled, we transparently use the Azure AD approach to authenticate you. So you should have a better experience for those when you have that set up. For when you do an apply PnP tenant template, in the template, you can potentially create multiple site collections, but you didn't see that visually. You didn't get any feedback of that. Now we, after the creation, we output the URLs of the site collections that were created during the applying of the template, which is a nice thing to have. We had some pictures in Connect PnP line with the SharePoint management shell, essentially that throw like a forward-tree exception, which was a bug, which was a pretty annoying bug that we fixed. And there is lots of additional switches to the convert to PnP client-side commandlet, which I'll talk about in the modernization slide in a second. So, but overall, growing good. Usage statistics also 10,000 tenants a month using PnP PowerShell. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the PnP PowerShell usage is the #1 on Tuesday as well. So it's actually Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So sorry, no, Sunday is the second last. So Saturday is the least usage on the SharePoint Online.
Well, why aren't people working on Saturday? What's wrong with Saturday?
And to be fair, I think it's the time zones and everything else, which is Sunday on GMT. Anyway, but interesting statistics. Let's go to the modernization tooling.
Yes. So modernization tooling. We did actually a massive amount of work for the page transformation engine. So the March release, which will go out tomorrow, and the PowerShell part will then be on Monday, as discussed. But for the March release in page transformation, let me set one step back. Page transformation is technology that you can use to take a classic wiki or web art page and generate a modern client-side page, which is equivalent from that classic page. And that's the engine part, which is .NET essentially. Will be in the March release. That engine will have following new things. The big thing is they're transforming into another site collection. So essentially, you can read a page from a particular site collection and create the modern client-side page, for example, in a new communication site, a new site collection. So we do support cross-site collection transfer. We'll handle most web parts. We'll handle assets. So if you have an image web part on on the source, we copy the image to the target site collection, put it under the site assets, follow the same structure as we have out of the box when you put an image web part on a page. And essentially, we'll just make it happen. So you will have a modern page in that communication site with local assets. The assets are not living in the old site collection anymore. So we really copy the assets and create a page in the right spot. And would like to thank Paul Bullock there for lots of contributions in this space. So we did a massive amount of work here. So thanks for that, Paul. Furthermore, we have new web parts supported. Content search web part and contact field control are now transformed. Content search goes to the highlighted content web part, and contact field goes to the people web part. We had several improvements in existing web part mappings. I think the notable one is summary links. So for the folks using summary links, this is often used in publishing scenarios, but you have like a header and then you have different links pointing to assets. That one now goes to the quick links instead of just to plain text. I think what else is really important here, and content editor maybe is that one. If you have a content editor web part pointing to a HTML file, then we now read the HTML content, and if it's content without script, we'll just convert it to HTML and put it as text content on the page. If it's content having a script and you have enabled the script editor extension, then you will just run the script for you. Otherwise, we'll just say like, sorry, can't be converted. So that's good. What else do we have? The mapping file for the folks that work with this. So we have a mapping file describing how things are converted. In the past, when you wanted to use the community script editor web part, you had to actually change the mapping file and do some kind of uncommon stuff in there, and then you had your own version of the mapping file, which was kind of annoying if a new version came along. Now we actually just made the one mapping file having both solutions, with or without community script editor, and you can just simply set a flag and then the behavior changes. So it's way more easy for you to use and to stay current with the web part mapping. What else? Let me see. I think the next big thing actually is publishing page support. So the fact that we now can do cross-site collection and transfer assets is prerequisite for then taking a page living in a classic publishing page site collection and creating a modern version in a COM site. So that's something that we will be looking into for April, May timeframe. Not sure how much we will be able to ship in April, but definitely for May for SharePoint conference.
Don't promise anything too details on that yet, Bert, right?
No,
so, but we're looking into that.
We're looking into that, and we're trying, and we're hoping, and which means we should be able to get it. So yeah.
Now, James actually had a quick question related on the cross-site collection thing, and it's actually related on that discussion. So I wanted to jump on here. Related on cross-tenants. Now that what Paul did, I think theoretically that should be doable, but what's your feeling on?
It can be, it does require some changes, but it's not impossible anymore. In the end, we just provide 2 client context objects into the transformation engine, and that's it. It will do the work on that, but there might be some places where we do some, it does require testing, it does require maybe some minor changes, but it's not an impossible scenario to enable, but not tested and not immediately available, but might be something for the future. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Then we have page transformation UI. Nothing happened in that space because I focused on the engine part. The idea is to make the engine better and handle those scenarios first, and then work on the V1 for the page transformation UI, but that's still in the plans. But it's shifting a bit later to maybe April, May timeframe. And the usage here is, you see the bottom, it was quite low, but it is growing, and this is the combined usage of the page transformation and the modernization scanner. So both are kind of counted here, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
It's always looking like that when we start, and then and then it starts growing and the usage, and so. And I think the whole modernization, in-place modernization, or the modernization from a classic to modern, is something which is gradually getting more and more attention. To be fair, it's not the only option to go to the modern either, because you might choose that, hey, I'm not transforming, and people just should be moving to the new sites and site collections and all of that. And
absolutely. Yeah. This is just if you do like bulk work and you have like thousands of pages and you don't want to do it manual. Then you need this tag. Otherwise, if it's small sites, just go manual.
Yep. Good. I think that's it from your side, Bert, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So then we originally would have Chris Kent at this spot as his recurrent bi-weekly things, but in this week, let's have Chaks actually doing his demo first. So I'm going to move in here. We have Chaks doing customizing modern page approval workflow, and then going back to Chris, and then to Velin in the end as a third demo. And from a timing perspective, I think this looks pretty good, as long as the screen sharing and everything else is working.
Thanks, Risa. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good. All good.
Excellent. You know, it's just not Finland. It's even snowing in Redmond.
Yeah, I saw that actually. Or somebody shared that in a Teams. Yeah. But for you, it's much more horrifying because we can deal with the snow, but Seattle and Redmond can't. So.
Hey, we deal with this without any issues. We drive really safe. We drive, focused, and make sure we are all like reaching office without. Even if there is 2 inch or 3 inch of snow. Yeah. Anyway, so demos. So lots of flow demos. I thought I would just focus today on the modern page approvals. And I think many folks would like to see what they can do on top of the default modern page approval flow that gets created on the site. So I'm not going to go create the flow because I think if you create the flow, it just takes time. So basically, you start with your pages library, configure page approval flow under the flow menu, and then you get the create flow button where you can create the page approval flow. So that by default gives you a really simple approval flow, no different than any approval that you would see in the flow service, right? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of like now show you what's with if you want to have multiple workflows. And then how do you handle news posts, and how do you, sort of approach auto-approve pages as one example scenario, and then look at parallel approvals as well. So let's jump in. So this menu over here allows you to create different approval flows. So you are not entitled with just one, but you can have multiple approvals flow. So this is really useful because once you basically want to have different workflows for different type of content, you don't have to complicate by putting all of the logic into one flow. You can basically put, have multiple workflows and basically ask users to, hey, depending on the content, can you select the right workflow? So here is, for example, I have submit page for approval and submit news for approval, right? So now I created a page. I did not create a news post. So I could choose as an author. I know that I'm supposed to choose submit page for approval, but you'll get the options here. And this is really, I think I would recommend, rather than putting all of the logic in one big bucket, that is in one big flow. So that's the associating multiple workflows, just getting started with using, different workflows for different content scenarios. The next one is doing some conditions, right? So this is great. This is not a page though. So what happens if I actually use submit news for approval and, go through the flow to give some message and send it to, approvers? Please review and let me know if you can approve. And I kind of submit this page, right? So this is not a news post. Now I did submit it for the news post. So what should happen? Basically, the flow should be, smart enough to kind of say, hey, sorry, this is not a news post, so you cannot use this flow. Right now, that's exactly the email I got. News approval only works with news post. Please create a news post and submit that for approval instead of submitting a page for approval. Really cool, right? So how do we do this? So if I go to my flow, submit news for approval, I have modified the default flow to use something where I first initially check if it's a news post. Now, if you have all of these actions, get file properties, get file metadata, and then when you build a condition, now you can actually see in the get file properties, you got a bunch of properties that Pages itself uses in the Pages library for you to be using it in your flow as well. Now, one of the things I would suggest here is consider these columns that you get out of the box as read-only columns. They can be manipulated today, and you can edit them and update them in the flow, but I would expect that would lead to different problems. So let's make sure that these properties, something that you consider them read-only, because you didn't create them. The system created it for you. So one of those properties is promoted state. And that promoted state has basically 0 or 1. And 1 is basically a news post, and 0 is a page. So I'm checking if promoted state is 1. That means that will tell me this is a news post. If yes, I'm going to go and basically send for approval. If not, I'm going to basically reject that approval and send the email that you just saw what I received in my inbox. So that's how you can easily now differentiate between a news post and a page. And now imagine all of these conditions going into one flow. Having this in this flow makes it really simple and actually very much targeted and clear in what you're doing. Now let's look at auto approvals, right? So I'm here. I'm going to create a news post, and I'm going to put this news post demo. I'm a manager here, so I expect this thing just gets published. I don't want to be going through a approval process because I'm a manager. I have some powers in the organization. So let's go do submit news for approval. I'm a manager. I'm going to submit this, and I'm going to hope this is really auto-approved. So I'm going to go to kind of like any approvals and basically go through that step. So let's see what happens in a minute. I should get an email. There you go. I got an email, and the email says your page was auto-approved and published. Great. So now as a manager, I don't have to go through this, approval thing. But if I go as a normal user and say news post and say this is user news post, and then do the same thing, submit news for approval. Now this should take me through the approval process. Within a few seconds, I should receive an email here saying that that user submitted, Kerem actually submitted this page for approval. Hopefully it's quicker there. So this this post requires approval for publishing. So this is how I can easily now differentiate, right? And I can put those conditions. Every organization has different processes and different guidance on how auto approval should work. But here is how my auto approval works. So I use the get direct reports action available in Flow under. Somebody is trying to connect. Interesting. Anyway, looks like my home is ready for prime hacking. But anyway, so get direct reports for the user email. So this user email, if you look at in the dynamic content, it says that the address of the user to trigger the flow, right? So if it's me, then it's me. If Kerem, it's Kerem. And then I check if this manager has direct reports, right? So the length, I'm just doing length of the value, right? So the value will give me all of the direct reports. If that is greater than 0, if the array is greater than 0, then yes, this person is a manager, so auto approve the page. If not, I go through the normal approval process and complete the approve or reject based on whatever I review the page. So it's really simple, right? So that's the kind of what we have seen. We saw the associating multiple approval workflows. We saw how we can handle news posts. We also saw a scenario where I can identify someone as a manager and auto approve pages for the manager. Let's look at some complex scenario, parallel approvals. So what if you want to track the approval at every stage and also have a way where you can log certain things, you can audit certain things, and you get the flexibility of how each approval phase goes through. So for example, if it's Chaks, the approval might be different. If it's Kerem, the approval might be different. So you might want to handle those things. So at those instances, parallel approvals help to manage those kind of customizations in our flow. So let's basically look at the example, how this works. So let me go create a new page. Parallel approval demo, and I'm going to submit the page for approval, right? So I'm going to select this flow right now, submit page for approval. Approval flow, I'm going to submit. So this one, the approval goes to 2 people. It comes to me, the user that I'm currently using. And then it goes to another user over here as well. So you should see emails coming through very soon on this approval. There you go. I got my approval, right? So I can do everything from here, or I can also basically go to the page, review approvals. I'm going to see the approval over here. You know what? I'm going to approve this page. This is great timing. Approved and awesome. Let's say I'm really happy about this page. I'm going to confirm this page, right? So that's my job is done here. But there's still one approval pending, which is, Kerem needs to approve this. But now I'm going to be like, look at the title and say, this is too early to push this post. Please work with your PMM, and I'm going to reject this, right? So imagine the scenario right now. Somebody approved it, but still this didn't be approved because the other person in the parallel workflow actually is now going to reject it. So what's going to happen now? The ideal scenario should be that my approval page should be rejected. There you go. It immediately refreshed. So I should get an email now saying what happened. So it will say, the page was not approved by Kerem. It was set back to draft, and here's the comment that Kerem actually put in forth. And now if both users reject the page, you'll see the page was not approved by Kerem and Chaks, right? So and then you'll have both the comments here. So how do we do this thing? So let's go back to the other flow, submit page for approval. So this one has gone through several modifications, and the key modification here is using a parallel branch, right? So as soon as you create a scope needs an action to start parallel branch, and the action that you can use is the one that you set currently pending. And from there, you start 2 approvals. If you have 5 approvals, you can have 5 parallel branches, right? And the scope allows you to basically come down to a single point of execution after that branch or after all of those parallel branches get executed. So here in start and approval, nothing really fancy going on. It's the same approval. In the conditions, however, what I'm going to do is I'm incrementing the approved count. So I'm tracking how many people are approving this particular request, this whole request, right? This is the page. And then I'm also basically getting hold of the comments that this user would put in his approve or rejection area, right? So here, this is for the approver comments. Similarly, for approvers rejected, because I don't know who could reject this, I'm going to track if at all this person rejected, I'm going to put that person's name into an array variable. And similarly, the rejected comments as well. So now I get a bucket of, hey, what happened in approved and what happened in rejected, right? So similarly, the same goes for the other person as well. And I do the same. And by this time, if both approved, the approved will be 2. And by the time both approved, we'll have their comments in here. If somebody rejected, right, the approved will be just 1 because only 1 approved it and 1 rejected it. And if both rejected, this basically won't move at all, will be in 0. And same thing for rejected comments as well. And finally, what now makes me check for if the request has been approved or not is checking the variable, right? The variable that I incremented every time somebody approved. If that is equal to 2, then both approved it. So that is the condition where everyone must approve. And if they approved it, then I set the content approval to approved, and then email notification send that, hey, everything is good. If not, I reject the page and I send the email notification. Now, one of the cool tricks you can do here, since you're all using array variables, so I'm using all of the collections here as an for the approvers rejected, and even the I don't use the rejected string now, but you can see I'm using array for like who are the approvers that rejected them, what are the comments for approved and rejected. So that now you can use the join expression for when you do the rejected. Sorry, I'm going over and over. So approval is easy. You know that both approved, so you can get the names of the approval, you can get the names of comments. The rejection is pretty complex, right? Because you have to know who rejected it, either of one rejected, and what are the comments either of one gave. So for that, you can simply use a really cool expression called join. And then if you see my join, all I do is join variables approvers rejected. So that's the array where it holds who are the approvers rejected. And if there is more than one, it will concatenate that with the ampersand, right? Really, really simple. This is like straightforward. I have an array, I combine them with ampersand. If you get 2, you get ampersand included in the middle. If not, you just get 1. Similarly, you do for join, right? And I already have the rejected comments in the array variable. I use that, and now I use a dash instead of ampersand, just to indicate that, hey, there are 2 comments here, and here are the comments. Now you can take this further complex and say that this person did this comment, this person did that comment, if you basically do a multi-dimension array and stuff like that. So, but this is a really simple way to kind of like bring an array and make them a string in Flow. So this is how this flow works, and it has parallel approvals. And actually, it makes total sense if you want to track this. Now you can audit everything along the way to understand what happens. You can even put it back into the SharePoint list and add a column in your pages library that references that to show all of the comments. So this is, you have endless possibilities now that you can go start doing these things. So, so that was my demos that I wanted to share today with you all. So if you have any questions, let me know. Vesa, back to you.
Thank you, Chaks. Really awesome stuff. Really great to see these things and what's possible with the Flow and SharePoint integration. There was one question which I wanted to just double check, Chaks. We don't have to actually explicitly. Well, anyway, so there's external users for Power Apps. Is there any information from your side related on supporting Power Apps for the external users in SharePoint Online? I think it was, I can't remember who asked the question, but it's understandable request.
So external user support for
Power Apps.
Flow, for Power Apps custom forms is coming. Yeah. We are working on that. I don't know the plans of how external users in standalone Power Apps. That's something I think we should understand how Power Apps team is going to work on that. But they're working on that as well because both are kind of like tied together. But yeah, it's coming very soon. So external users, when they go to a list and see open a form that is a custom form, they would be able to use it.
Yep. Excellent. Now, Chris, I just uploaded, upgraded you as a presenter. I think you're next on the queue. So thank you, Chaks, for this one. You had some family errands to run as well, so hopefully this isn't too late. So we'll catch later, and thank you for the demo.
Thanks, Reza. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Can you guys hear me, see me, all that stuff?
Yep. Well, we can't see you. Well, we can see, your slides. All good, all good.
You see the slides. All right, that's good enough. All right. All right, everybody. Hello. So I'm Chris Kent, MVP, PnP Core Team, all that other stuff. There's things, reach out to me as needed. I got something really excited to tell you today. So tried to show you last week, had a small issue, but everything's working today as of 30 seconds ago. So we will hope that we got it good to go. But I'm really excited about it. So let's get rid of this. Bye-bye. All right. So we've got ourselves a nice list here. I want to show off a new magic string. So if I'm going to go ahead and come here, I'm going to format this column, right? So that'll allow me to apply column formatting. I'm just going to come in here. Oh, Patrick sees me. That's really creepy. All right, so let's say elem type. All right, this is just for testing. Div, and we'll say text content. In this case, we're just going to say this new magic string called @row_index. So this is a very exciting one. Wow! Look at that. So now we can just see everything just turned into a number here. So it starts at 0. So that's the actual index of the rendered row in the view. I'll explain what that means in just a minute. So that's a really exciting thing. Now that we can do a lot with just putting row index. But there's another nice new operator came out here called the modulus operator, or the remainder. So you could say equals, and I do something like 13. Modulus is done with a % sign. So I say 13%2, preview that, you see it's all ones. Because the idea here is it divides it by 2, right, and then gives the remainder. So in this case, because it's odd, it's going to be a 1. All right, we change that to 12. We get ourselves 0, all right, 11, and so on. So the nice thing is you start to see, that's cool. What the heck do I do with that? All right, so we wrap that up here. We mix those together. So I say row index, right, and I say modulus 2. And I say that equals 0. All right, then let's put the word odd in there, and otherwise let's put the word even in there. So I preview that. Now we're getting somewhere, right? Now I can actually tell what's happening here. I got an odd, I got an even, and that's great. And you can use these, row indexes and column formats, but generally that's not super helpful. So let's take this a little further, and let's take this over to a view format. So come in here, and I'm going to go to my view format. I'm going to format the current view. All right. So come in here, and we'll do the same kind of thing. We're going to just say additional row class. Right, that allows us to apply a class to the entire row. I'll make sure before I forget, I'm going to close that thing out before it yells at me. All right, we'll do the same if statement. So if @row_index, modulus 2, right, equals 0, so it's odd row. All right, let's apply a class here. So we say MSVG color. All right, and we'll say theme white. That sounds great. Otherwise, don't do anything. Okay, close that out. If you preview that, boom! Look at that! Now we start to get something really, really interesting here, right? So now we've got some stuff going on here. We can go a little crazier, right? So we can add an alternate style. So MSVG color. All right, we'll say, I don't know, theme lighter. How's that? Theme lighter alt, just to mix it up. That sounds good. Ooh, look at that. It's getting very, very fancy. All right, if we go even fancier, we can add some hover styles and everything else. I'll just go ahead and paste that in here. Bam. All right, so I've added hover styles and some text. And now very quickly, I've got this very fancy looking list. It doesn't look near as Excel, giant spreadsheet on a web page. It gets very cool. So let's save that and see how that really works. So that row index I mentioned before, that's not unique to your list item, which is really important. So a lot of the magic strings like current field, pulling out other values, those are all related to your exact value inside the item. And so they stay the same as you modify that view. But these, however, are related to the rendered position of your item in the view. So what I mean by that is the top one is always 0, so it's always going to be odd. So it doesn't matter if I sort it. So I sort that thing, right? Look at that. It stays in place. Sort it this way. I can come over here. I can filter this guy. So let's just do choice 2 and 3. Apply that. So that's really, really powerful. So if you want to apply things that are specific to the rendered positions, this is what you want to do. So can you format the list header as well? So you can hide the list header. You can't really change the colors behind the scenes on that one. So if I wanted to hide that, I certainly could. Okay. All right, so that's cool. So now let's see what we can do here. So when is this helpful, right? So it could be very helpful if you've got, say, a warrior horse's site. And you've got the warrior horses, and they've got this giant, massive list here. And you've got a little gray line that comes across, and as you hover over things, let's go to the filter, right? You can sort of see things, but as this list is really, really wide, it's got a lot of stuff in it. It'd be so much easier if we could just read this, using a nice format. So luckily, everything I just showed you is available as a sample. So if you come over here and you go to the SPDev list formatting repo, and if you come down here to view samples, right at the top, there's this alternating row class, and that's what I was just showing you. So all you have to do is you click on the JSON file, and just copy and paste that, no fancy get stuff needed. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my site, and I'm going to format this view. I'm going to just paste that in there, and I'm going to save that. Bam! Look at that. Now I've got beautifulness. Right, I'm not quite so happy with maybe that. I could say theme secondary in this case, right? I'll preview that. Red. I guess that's what I put. Let's do tertiary. There we go. Again, this is a custom theme, so all of your colors can be applied here. You can also just apply colors directly. And you can even do things like, maybe I don't want every other row. I want every other row. I'm not sure how to say that, but right. So modulate, that's a 3. You can see you've got a lot of stuff you can do here. Let's get rid of that, though. Well, here's the power. So if I save that, close this, you can start to see. So I'm really zoomed in to try and make this a little more obvious. If I zoom way out and see this massive list, right, it is so much easier to read and keep things in track when I've got this nice format across here. And again, the fact that it stays in place like you'd expect as you filter and as you sort is really, really awesome. Okay, so there's a blog post, all this stuff. All of this is in the documentation as well, so if you're interested in finding out more about row index or the modules, you can check all that out. Let's head back over here. So here's the thing. Row index, right? Starts at 0 like all indexes should. This is SharePoint Online only, so 2019, sorry, that's not available for you. And again, evaluates the rendered index, which is really important, right? So a lot of people used to solve this alternating row thing. They try and use a calculated column based off the ID, not realizing that you can't really do that in calculated columns, and then they cry, and then they be sad. Well, be sad no longer. Here you go. And one other thing I kind of want to mention here is there's another thing here. Don't really have a sample for this, but it's the absolute. So ABS. So if you use this, takes away the negative. So you can use this for math operations. So that is available as well. And with that, we are looking for samples demonstrating practical usage. So if you've got a sample that would take advantage of that absolute operator, absolutely want that's ironic. Absolutely want that added to the repo. So please reach out on that one. All right. Finally, check out our docs, spdocs column formatting right here of the KMS. If you guys want that, let me grab that sucker. Okay, go check out the list formatting samples, and there's a blog post that goes much more in depth of everything I just showed you. You can go check that out as well. But that's it for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And I just realized that we have Velin still on queue, and I haven't upgraded Velin to be a presenter, so let me actually do that. So Velin can start sharing the screen. A lot of excitement on the IAM window, no specific questions as such, except how's the business with warrior horses? You're selling many of them?
Business is good. I don't know.
Exactly. And those who might be here first time, just to clarify, nobody knows why Chris is using warrior horses as the example, but they keep on appearing on this demo, so even he himself doesn't know why he's doing that. But anyway, it is what it is. But let's go to Velin. We still have 15 minutes. That's hopefully sufficient. So let's talk about the DevOps pipeline in the context of SharePoint Framework. And even though this is not a SharePoint Framework call, I think this is more architectural solution design, more ALM discussion. So it falls on this call category, so to say. But Velin, take it away. If we can hear you. We can't hear you. We can't. I can't see any audio things. Then let's wait until something is wrong. We can't see the microphone is not transmitting anything towards the call. Let's see. Or do you need to reconnect? That microphone is not catching anything. You can see that from the right side.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Awesome.
Oh, great.
That's
Sorry,
technology. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Velin Georgiev, and I'm a SharePoint developer for a very long time. Today we're going to talk about the DevOps pipelines. As mentioned, Vesa mentioned, it covers SPFx for now, but Vesa, this is, as you said, more related to ILM APIs, and in future we'll show how you can add the .NET Core or PnP Core components here and build and bundle and deploy along with the SharePoint framework packages. This is maybe just the start. So today we're going to talk about how to set up a different configuration for your SharePoint framework solutions. So you have different environments, and those packages might require different configuration. For the dev environment, running new features, and a different configuration for the production environment that is supposed to be stable when the new features are not supposed to be there if they're not ready. So this is a follow-up from the previous two demos. That's the demo number 3, and we already covered build basics and release basics. So this is a follow-up. Some things might not be demoed here, so I recommend you go there if you're missing a piece of information and see what is in there. And today we're going to just follow up on our previous discussion. So let me I'll be using GitHub as well again. My source code is in GitHub, and it's linked to Azure DevOps. So this is the demo, how we ended the demo last time. We had a development release task here and production release, and we were releasing a package to our dev environment and the same package to our production environment. So what it means is in our artifacts, we were having that package, SPFx package, that we were releasing to both environments. However, this is not always optimal because in many of the cases, in many of the cases, you have different setup. So ideally, you will release the package bundled and packaged with a setup for the dev environment, and the same package with a configuration more suitable for the production environment. And at the end of that build, you have that package listed here with basically we have two packages that are the same, but they have different configuration. And by different configuration, I mean, I'll go to the source code here and I'll show you my solution. My solution has ice cream shop and ice cream lorry web parts, but the ice cream shop is ready for production and the ice cream lorry is not ready for production, and the business doesn't want to include that into the other package. So the way we can control our features is from the config JSON here. And we have both web parts, but the difference should be like, I don't need that for production. It's not ready. So we have to exclude it. But somehow we have to include it in the production. So how we do that? Another business scenario might be that you have some app settings. For example, my app settings are bundled with the package. And I have different values here that I'm using, that my web parts are using as a shared values. And as I can see, I'm accessing the dev tenant here. But for production, that value should be production. So I can hit the production tenant. That might be another scenario. And how we can change that on the fly, how we can change that with the builds and the releases. So I will just save that. And I will show you what we have here. So here we have a DevOps folder. I've created that. That's not part of the SharePoint scaffolded project. So I've created that folder, and under that folder we have a build where all our build definitions are. We have release, where we have the release scripts, but we also have a folder called configurations. So in that folder, we have a prod folder, and we might have QA, staging, whatever environment you have. And underneath, we have a config. And under the config, we have another config JSON. So you can see that from this folder, I'm trying to replicate whatever is in that root folder. So under config, we have config here, we have config here, we have that JSON there, and we have that JSON there. So the difference here is the dev JSON have both web parts, and that config here has the only the web part that's supposed to be in production. Then on the other hand, we have a source. And in that source, again, I'm trying to exactly replicate the same folder structure as is here. That's very important later. And in that very same structure, we have source, web parts, and then we have ice cream shop. We have it here. And then down below, we have the manifest. Right, and here we have the manifest, and you can have a different setup on even on a web part level. You might have that set to true, but when it goes to production, it should be false. In my case, I have supports full bleed here, and I don't have it here. Probably the product owners decided that that web part is not suitable for full bleed, and in the next release we'll go without full bleed. But for now, in production, we are full bleed. And then on the app settings again. App settings, the same location as in the root folder. App settings, the same, absolutely the same folder structure, but here we have prod, and we have like the assets is different version or whatever. Now, how we put that into our pipeline? We already have those configurations here. But what we are supposed to do, so here is our build here. Our build definition is again the same YAML file from the previous time, but slightly modified. So we have trigger, that's master branch. We have compute here, a virtual machine to run the scripts. We install Node.js on that machine. So we can do things with gulp. And then here is the interesting part here. So what we are doing is we are copying all the files from the source directory. So that is a variable that tells Azure DevOps Pipelines that the source directory in all the files in the source directory should be moved to a staging directory. So basically just move to another folder. But not just to the staging directory, but staging/dev. So I'll be moving all the files into that dev folder. And after I move all these files, I will say go to that folder, install all the modules, bundle and package the solution, and then zip it and make it available in Azure DevOps. So at the end, we have the dev package there. All we did so far is we've just moved the files, all these files from one folder to another, and we executed the usual commands here to package. And this is our dev package. But for the production, then we continue, like we say, copy all the files again from that source directory into another folder that is /production/prod. So we move all the files again in that new folder. And here is the moment, the simple trick that we're doing to overwrite those files. So what I'm seeing here, like that's the most important part of the demo, maybe. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying go to that folder, that prod folder, grab all these underneath, and move them back to the root folder. So what that will do is that will just override everything that you have here with everything that is underneath here. So you can control multiple settings like that. You can have even your package JSON that is running old packages here, and then you can override it. And after you override it, you execute npm install gulp bundle and package, and that should give you your production package. It's very simple but very powerful because it's running under 1 second, so it's efficient. And it gives you different configurations for different environments. Again, at the end, as I've said, we just bundle package and we make that prod available. So I'll do a small change to see how this works because I already have that pipeline prepared. But I'll do a small change in the files for you to see that it's just running. So that's my production environment, and you can see the app settings here. They're saying prod 1 to 3. And then I'll change that. Let me just refresh. It's supposed to say prod only. Okay. No. And then we have the other one that is saying dev 1 to 3. And I'll just change those and start the build for you just to see that it's just working. Where is it? App settings. Change it to dev demo. And put something else here. Like, where is it? Configurations, source, app settings, prod demo. And then we'll say git commit everything, config change. There we go, git push to my repository. And that should just start the build. Okay, let's see what's happening. We go to our DevOps. And we go to our build, and we're trying to see if something is going to change. Oh, there you go. So we have a build, and that build will try to execute all these steps in the YAML file. So it will try to find available agent. I'm using the free agents that Microsoft offer, and it will try to run all these steps one by one. While we are waiting, I'll just recap what just happened in the build. I have 2-3 slides here. So again, we're copying from the source directory all the files as they are into a new folder called dev. And we have everything as is. The only part is that we're compiling whatever we have in the source. Now, on the other side, the prod package, we're copying everything into a prod folder, but there is a nice animation here. Like we are overriding whatever is in the source with those configurations from that folder. And then we do the compilation. Now, this is not changing anything in your source control. So this is running just on the VM that is creating the build. Then that VM is destroyed, so your source control is not ruined. You don't have to do anything else. It's just one-time override here for your information. And another thing is why we have a prod and a dev folder here. Why can't I just override, run npm install, then override again and run npm install in the same directory? Well, for me, it's simple because I'm moving those to a separate prod and dev folders, simply because if you have a package JSON with different packages and you execute npm install, that might cause conflicts, right? You npm install for dev and then you npm install for production in the same directory, that might cause conflicts. That's the reason. And the build is already there. There is just one more thing I want to show you because the build is not enough. We have to go to the release, and the release is one minor change as from the previous time. So in the release, I'll just go and edit and show you what changed there. So here is my release file, And in my release file, I have an extra variable here, and that variable is stored in the variables. And you have an extra if else to say, okay, if that variable is true, is dev true, pick up the dev package and deploy it. If that variable is false, just deploy the production package. That is the difference in here, and that variable is stored in the release pipeline here in the variable. So you can control that variable. You're saying when you're running against the dev environment, set it to true. When you're running against the production environment, set it to false. We're just on time, so I don't think I'll have time to show you how this changed, but believe me, at the end of the day, this will change, right? So this is how you can control your settings inside your package. And next time we'll talk about a parallel execution, because running npm install twice in a sequence is taking too long. So in the next demo, we'll show parallel execution, and we will race Windows against Linux to see if we can break the myth that Linux compiles Node.js code better. Okay, that's me, Vesa.
Thank you, Velin. Thank you. We have 1 minute on top of the hour. I do apologize on that. It's always a timing thing. But thank you, Velin. Really powerful demo on the DevOps side. And next time, in 2 weeks, we'll keep Velin doing the recurrent demos as the final demo section in these calls as well. We know that the DevOps might be something which is not super interesting for some, but then for those which is interesting, it is insanely interesting. So, and it's really, really valuable to actually get this covered. The recording of the webcast, the community call will be live tomorrow in the dev blog within 24 hours, typically in 20 hours roughly, and then I will release also these individual demos as videos in the YouTube channel early next week when they have been processed. The next SPDev SIG meeting is on March 21st, SharePoint Framework meeting within a week, 14th of March. Now, by the way, if you are joining from US, there will be a slightly small adjustment on the hours for following 2 weeks, and this is because US goes to daylight savings different time than Europe, and this is always the interesting situation where the timings will be slightly jumped. So have a look on the recurrent invites when the meeting is for you, and those are being up to date on the Outlook. But thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for your input and discussions in the window. Those are super valuable, and let's keep on being active, and please let us know if there's anything we can help on the Microsoft side. But thank you everybody. Thank you Velin, thank you Chris, thank you Chaks on the great demos. Recording out, like I said, in 24 hours, roughly 20 hours in the YouTube channel. Thank you. Bye bye.